Well, hello everyone. I hope you're having a great day today. Welcome to Thursday's edition of Take 5. We're in the series we've entitled Rapture 101. This week the message was the days of Noah, and we are making a comparison to the time prior to Noah's flood, what the generation of people were like then, and we're comparing it to the generation that we live in today, because in Matthew 24, Jesus tells us that when times look like they did in Noah's day, then you know that the Son of Man is soon to return. And I believe that we can just absolutely see a mirror image today of what we saw in the days prior to the flood. And that's what we've been doing the last couple of days, is comparing that. We saw where Noah's day, they were a corrupt generation. Well, we can see that today. Corrupt and violence is everywhere in our society, or corruption and violence, should I say. And then we saw where the people in Noah's day they were a very cavalier generation, and we are that as well. It's not that society doesn't believe that Jesus is coming. We're just so busy serving ourselves and fulfilling our own desires that we just dismiss the notion that Jesus is soon to return, and we make more preparation for today than we do for eternity. Today I want to talk about a careless generation. The people of Noah's day was a very careless people, and I think you see the exact same thing today, especially when I tell you what the definition of careless is. Of course, you know it means to be negligent. You're aware of that. But there's another part of that definition that says acting with insufficient attention, even though sufficient knowledge has been provided. That means you know you've been given every opportunity to know, but you still just don't respond to it because you're just careless with the information you've been given. You're negligent. Most educators agree that careless mistakes have nothing to do with lacking knowledge or proper understanding of a concept. They say that careless mistakes are self-inflicted wounds that could have and should have been avoided if only the warning had been heeded. Now that's the issue today. It's not as though there is a shortage of this knowledge of the rapture and the return of the Lord. There's not a shortage of that. People are just careless with it. They're just negligent with it. And when you begin to talk about that and you begin to be careless with the commands and the promises and the warnings of Scripture, what you have done is become a person who has no reverential fear of a holy God. And I believe that's where most people, and including Christians, are today. They just simply have no reverent fear of God. Now, when I say that, the first thing that people think of when you say, have a fear of God, the first thing they think of is fright and horror. No, that comes from the devil. We've watched too many horror movies and fear shows and freak shows and things like that in society today, and that's the first thing that we think. But fear, a biblical definition of fear, especially when it comes to fearing the Lord, is to have a reverential awe of God and respect the fact that He is God, He is all-powerful, He is the all-knowing creator, rewarder, and judge. Basically, it means this: I'm not afraid of God. He doesn't want me to be afraid, especially to come into His presence, even if I've sinned. He wants me to come boldly before the throne of grace. I'm not supposed to be afraid of Him with fright and horror, but I am supposed to have a reverential fear that says, I know He is God and He will do exactly what He said He'll do. He's good for it. He'll do it. If He said it, He'll do it. He's capable and He will keep His word. And that is what should move us to make preparations for this thing we're calling the rapture. Because if He said He's coming to get His people, guess what? He's coming to get His people, and sin is going to be judged. And if we're not saved, we will be left behind to endure the judgment of the tribulation. Fear is actually what moved Noah. Faith is what heard God say what He said, but fear is what moved him. Hebrews 11 says, by faith Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. Now, did you hear that? Faith is how he heard it and how he believed it, but the fear, that reverential fear that God would do what he said he would do, that's what moved Noah to build the ark. Faith was his principle of living, but fear was his principle of obedience. Faith molded him, fear moved him. And I believe we're such a careless generation today. We have the knowledge of the rapture and the return of the Lord and that sin will be judged. We have knowledge of that, but we're so careless. We're not moved to the extent that we know that God is going to do what he said he's going to do. I hate that we have grown to the place that where we feel like that there is not a side of God that will judge sin. But whether you think it or not or believe it or not, God is going to judge sin. He's going to do that, and he is going to rapture those that have faith in Jesus Christ off of this planet before he does that. Noah didn't have some evil fear. He had no servile fear of God. He wasn't afraid of God like a convict is a judge or anything like that. It wasn't a careless fear. He didn't have despairing fear. Noah had a loyal reverence of God. He feared him as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He feared God because of his greatness and because of his own weakness and sinfulness. And all mankind should have that kind of fear of the Lord. Noah was filled with such a holy fear that he took care to do what God instructed him to do. And we should do the same. He didn't alter the shape or the dimensions of the ark. He didn't try to change the type of wood. He didn't modify the door or the window or anything that God told him to do. He rejected his own thinking and he put into play exactly what God said. And that's what we've got to do today. We should be moved with fear to do that because we know that God will do what he said he'll do. Noah did exactly what God told him to do and left the consequences with the Lord who had commanded him because he knew that God would do exactly what he said. Fear is what helped Noah work with diligence and speed and made him despise all of the criticism that the people around him put on him as they scorned him. Fear is what moved him. And can I tell you something, friend? Fear is what should move us today in the direction of God because we know that just like he said, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the time of the return of the Son of Man. And I believe Jesus is coming soon because we can look around us and we see the corruption they had in Noah's day. We see the cavalierism they had in Noah's day. And we also see the carelessness they had in Noah's day. We see that today, and that is a sure sign that the return of the Lord is at hand. Hey, I've got to get out of here. It's been good being with you today. I look forward to being with you tomorrow on Friday's edition of Take 5. Till then, God bless you. Have a great day. Hey, trust the Lord, friend. He will never fail you.